Okay, so now we're going to move into the second part. Let me get this disconnected. Second part of financial math, which is lesson 6, and it's going to deal primarily with loans and something called an annuity, which is any type of investment that has a regular payment, either payment to you or payment from you. We call those annuities. So let's, we've got our financial calculator open, and you download this. I think it'll be easier. Okay, so again, characteristics of money. They're going to, from this time value of money calculating platform, there's always a present value. And when we start talking about loans, this is going to be the amount that we borrowed. So this is the loan amount. And it will be a positive value because that money comes to us. Now, say you're buying a car, you may not actually see the cash, but that cash is used to pay for the car, and then you get the car. You're paying for a house, the loan, you don't see the cash for the house, but it gets transferred to the seller. So this present value is our loan amount. Payments, that's what we'll calculate. Typically on loans, those are going to be monthly payments. So that's why we're using this particular calculator. So you'll see most of the time it'll be set on monthly. Interest rate, same type of deal we've been using. Those are there. Again, some of our problems will be calculating the monthly payments. Periods, you take the month times the year. So that's all set up. And the last thing that we really have to consider is future value. And what is the future value for a loan? You're going to make monthly payments, and how long are you going to make those monthly payments? Forever? Hopefully not. So you buy a car, you may maybe make payments for 5 years, 7 years, 8 years, right? At the end of all your payments, how much do you owe? 0. Good. Yeah. So that's the ideas behind loans. We're going to get them paid off at some point in time. So let's see, where's my future value? We're going to have to put in 0. Okay, because the calculator needs to know that we're not building up money. So when we calculate the payment, we have to have that in there. Otherwise, it doesn't say. Okay. Cool. And that's pretty much the only difference between savings and loans, is the money's going in a different direction. When we were saving, we would give the money to the bank, they would invest it, and we'd get some interest, and all the money would come back to us. This time, they're giving us some money, we're making money for them, and we're paying them back the interest over time. Plus, we're paying back what we borrowed over time, generally. Okay, so talking about loan payments, credit cards, and mortgages. We get to understand how all these things look. So the principal is the amount of the loan amount that we get at, and we can refer to the principal at any particular time. So after we've made payments, hopefully we have reduced the principal, how much we owe. That's the idea. So each payment, typically, some of it goes to pay back part of the loan, the other part goes to interest, which is the investor's benefit. An installment loan is paid off with equal regular payments. So each month we pay $500, whatever it is, and some goes to interest, some goes to the loan. Um, if you, any Spanish speakers in here, you know a little Spanish maybe? How about mortized? What does that mean? It's actually mortized, yeah, like death, right? So, and it's from Latin. So amortized is you are going to kill the loan. And thinking back to Roman times, either you killed the loan or the loan would kill you, because in the Roman times it was legal for them to do bodily harm to you, to come and break your legs if you didn't pay your loan. So literally, either you killed the loan or the loan people, the people you borrowed from, would come and possibly kill you. So not such a pleasant history, but that's why, fortunately, we live in a little bit more advanced times. You might have calls from your lenders, you might have them coming knocking on your door, but there's protections and laws that they can't come beat you up if you owe you money. Of course, depends, you got to be careful who you borrow from. Some people don't always follow the law. An amortization schedule is where they will show you this is your payment, each payment, this is how much goes to interest, this is how much goes to principal, and how your loan gets reduced. So we'll look at a few things there. The formula pretty much is the same as with savings, except again, with loans, oftentimes we're interested in what is that monthly payment going to be. And so we've got a present value, we've got an interest rate. The main thing to look at is what is up here in the exponent, time, the longer years. The thing is that this is the part that's dividing. So what is not clear when you're taking out a loan, the longer you have it, the longer you have to pay it back, the smaller the monthly payment will be, which seems like a good thing, right? Oh, it's a lower payment. Cool. But you will be making that lower payment for a longer time. So part of what we'll look at is, in the end, where do you really pay? How much are, so your monthly payments will be smaller, but the total of your payments will actually be larger the longer you do. So if you're buying a car, doing a 5-year loan, you'll actually pay less than doing an 8-year loan. However, if you take out an 8-year loan, your monthly payment's less. It might be something you need to do to get it in your budget.
When doing an installment loan, are you able to pay whatever amount you want as the starting payment and then go from there, or do you have to pay from whatever they have for installment?
They will usually give you some options, and so you might say, I want to pay this amount. And then what they will do is they will adjust the loan term. So they might say, you want to pay a lower amount? Okay, well, we gave you 5 years, so we'll give you an 8-year loan. But there's some limits. Sometimes, like on car loans, they won't give you a 20-year car loan to get it down to a lowest payment. But they might give you a loan from somewhere from 3 to 8 years is kind of, so.
Pay like half and then you can do installment loans?
Yeah, sometimes there's also what's called a down payment that will help reduce what you owe. So there's a lot of different things, a lot of moving parts, and that's important to understand, because as they change one thing, it changes a result of this other thing. And so a lot of times they will work to get to what payment you want to make, but again, that might not be to your advantage over the long run. Good.
Can you change the loan amount you're paying, like throughout the loan? Like you could do like a 5-year loan and then change it to an 8-year if you're not making.
That depends on the contract. It potentially could. Most actually don't allow you to do it, but what they will allow you to do is refinance it.
Okay.
So, and I used to do mortgage loans for homes, and we'd get people that says, if I get a big, I'm getting an inheritance and when my dad dies, so it might be 5 years, I don't know when it is, but could I take that money and pay it down? I says, well, you can, but your payment won't change unless you actually refinance the loan. And usually there's costs to refinance it. We're going to talk about that too. So they kind of get you one way or another. But there are some that are adjustable. And sometimes once you've got and see, loans actually, there's an initial investor, but they might sell it to somebody else, and that other person might be more flexible in the terms. I'm looking at my house, and My loan says it's not, that it can't be assumed that somebody can't come in and take over the loan. However, I called the lender because it's been changed. Somebody else bought the loan, and the new lender says, yeah, we'll do it as long as it's a family member. So, okay, my brother could buy my house and take over my low interest loan. Cool. The original wasn't that way. So yes, you always be willing to negotiate, call, find out. They might tell you no, but they might tell you yes. So, good questions. So here's an example of a amortization schedule. So somebody borrowed 7,500, and what they do is they calculate first the interest. So the interest on 7,500 at, let's see what, it's kind of small here. It's a 10-year loan at 9%. The monthly interest would be $56. So that kind of gives you the lowest. You can't pay less than 56 because that's your interest. But anything you pay more than that, and like this one, they came up with a payment of $95. So they subtract off the interest. Whatever's left goes to reduce the loan, and then you've got a new reduced balance. You no longer owe 7,500. You owe a little bit less. So then the next month, the amount of interest that gets charged is actually a little bit less. Again, by pennies, but it's smaller, and so over time, more of the money goes to pay for principal, to pay down the loan. So where do you pay most of your interest? In the first year or two of the loan. You're going to pay the most of the interest. So if you're going to try to pay your loan off early, that's where you want to start making the plan. Oh, let me pay an extra $100 a month early on. You'll reduce the amount of interest you pay. If you wait till the end of the loan, it doesn't make much of an effect. I had a car, we were going to pay it off early, but there was only 6 months left on a 5-year contract. Oh, okay, you'll save $100. It wasn't very exciting, so we just made the monthly payment, because we'd already paid most of the interest. So that's the thing, is loans, you will pay the interest early. Okay. Usually for the larger, and with cars also this happens, but with a house and mortgages, usually you have to make a down payment. And the reason for this is if you don't, there was a time period where they would do 100% financing, but they call this, they want you to have what they call skin in the game, so that you don't just get in and then you change your mind. Oh, I don't really like this house anymore. Let me just get out of it. I'll stop making the monthly payments and then give it to somebody else to try to sell. Or the value goes down, all these things. But if you have 10 to 20% in of your own money, you're less likely to just walk away from the house, is the idea.
High interest in the first year or so include the down payment, or is that a separate?
No, because the down payment's your cash. Okay. You pay that. So actually, the more down payment you make, the less interest you'll be paying over time. So it's also to your advantage if you have the money to make as much down payment as you can. And then that house, that car, it will be yours sooner. But, like all things, most of us don't have unlimited resources. If we did, like the person in California, whoever got the almost $2 million or $2 billion lottery ticket, it wasn't me. So, but, they probably have, they just pay cash. But those of us who are borrowing, it's this balancing act. Okay. When you do a house loan, though, they also will have some things called closing costs. Some car loans will do this as well. You pay actually a loan fee. You might have to pay to have your credit checked. Anything that the bank needs to have done, they will charge you for it. Again, I used to be in a brokerage. We even charged our clients for a Federal Express fee to deliver their documents. The thing was, is the bank came and picked them up from us, and I asked them, well, why are we charging people $25 when we get it for free? They says, well, that's our benefit, that if we didn't have it, they'd have to pay it. I said, well, anyway, so know who you're working with, and some of the fees you're going to get charged. There's direct fees, such as usually they have to do an appraisal on the house to make sure it's worth the value that they're loaning on it, credit checks, such like that. I've got a little worksheet on a future slide we'll look at. Also, They have origination fees, which means they are charging you for the loan officers and everybody to review your credit. Discount points, which means you buy down the interest rate. So sometimes you pay 1% and you get a slightly lower interest rate. So some of these upfront fees, again, what you're hoping is if you keep this loan long enough, it's going to be a cheaper loan for you, and you'll make up those initial costs. But you have to kind of know how they work and everything. There's basically two types of mortgages. One's a fixed rate where the interest rate will not change over the loan rate. Usually they're 15-year or 30-year loans. Again, the longer it takes you to pay it off, the more interest you'll pay, but also the lower your monthly payment. So a lot of us have to go with a 30-year loan because we need to get the payment down low enough. If we go 15 years, we'd get it paid off sooner, but then we'd also have to pay more money. Can't buy as much house if you think of it that way. Another kind of loan is an adjustable rate where the interest rate itself can adjust. We're at a place where those are now becoming popular because interest rates are higher, and they're thinking, well, maybe in a couple of years interest rates will go back down. So I want an adjustable rate so that in 3 years when rates are down, my loan will adjust downward. But 2 years ago, everybody wanted a fixed rate, so they get a 3% interest rate because the only place it could go is up. Okay. This is you might pull it up. It's kind of hard, but I used to be a realtor. I was a licensed realtor, so I had one of our title companies who does closing do an actual cost sheet for closing. So you could kind of see, this is let's see if I can see this. This is a $275,000, a purchase of a house that was $275,000, and this was probably 5 years ago or more. So you see the loan amount was $261, so that was back when they were doing more than, or loaning more than 90%. So this person didn't have to come up with too much down. They have to do some prepaids. There's there's 4,600 of what's called closing costs. But the bottom line is, after the down payment and everything, the buyer had to come in with $19,000. So there was a down payment of $13,750, and then over here it shows all the different types of costs. You have to buy some insurance on the title to make sure it's transferred correctly, that somebody who maybe owned it before, didn't transfer it correctly, and they come back and you don't actually own it or something. So there's all this insurance, there's notary fees, there's email doc fee. I didn't think it cost money to email, but again, they're charging here $75 to email the documents. So there's all these kind of things. Now you can always negotiate and say, I don't want to pay that. Email's free. I said, well, then go someplace else to do your loan, maybe. Sometimes they'll negotiate and take it off, but you have to look over these things and be prepared that they will, in the lighter, they'll charge $50 here, $75 there. They know you want to get this house, and you're probably not going to throw everything in over $50, but there's some really nasty things they put over here that charging you, air in the conference room, or something that could charge you. So just be careful of who you're working with and know that you do have choices. This is a graphic of interest versus principal. And so the blue is the interest paid on this loan. So notice this first payment of $734, the majority of it is interest. Only this tiny little bit down here is principal. And that happens that over time, you will pay off the loan. More and more is principal, but you will pay the majority of your interest here in the early part of the loan. Just looking at this graphic, how much interest in relation to the original loan, so the pink is the original loan, about how much interest do you end up paying on this loan? If I were to cut this box in half, about 50-50, right? The amount that you borrowed, you'll pay about that much in interest. Actually, a little bit more probably. You'll pay a little bit more in interest than you do in principal. So this $100,000 loan, in the end, ends up costing them about $200,000. They will pay back $200,000. But the thing is, they've got the house that they've been living in for the 30 years. The way you can calculate that is you take your monthly payment, $734. How many times are you going to make that payment over 30 years? You're going to make it 12 months every year times 30. 12 times 30 is 300. You're going to make 360 payments. Plus you put a down payment. But we're just looking at the loan. This is the total amount you will pay. So let's calculate that. 734 times 360. Because this is actually in the homework, they will ask you how much interest did you pay. You can't use a calculator, won't tell you that, but what you do is you take your monthly payment, multiply it, if it's a 30-year loan, times 360. If it's a 15-year loan, it would be times 180. I come up with 264,000. 240. What was the amount of the loan? They borrowed 100,000. So we subtract the loan amount because that got repaid, right? The rest is interest. They paid $164,000, 240 in interest. That's a lot. But remember, it's over time. If you didn't buy this house, what would you be doing? You'd be renting. How much rent do you get back at the end of? Nothing. At the end of this, at least you owned a house. Hopefully the house value over 30 years has gone up. Maybe it's worth $500,000 now, so you could say that's okay. Also, the government helps because any interest that you pay on a mortgage, typically you can deduct from your taxes, so you get some benefits that way. What else is the benefit? Well, you're just going to have, you get to live in a house, and then you get all the different things. You can paint it funky colors if you like funky colors. It's your house. You can do. If you want a dog, you can have a dog. You don't have to ask the landlord. All these kind of things that typically you can do. But again, the cost is that the long-term cost, you're going to pay some interest on it. The other part is what happens to money over time? Something they're talking about now, right? Inflation. It actually loses value. So a dollar today actually has more value than a dollar 10 years from now. A dollar 10 years from now might only be worth, in equivalency, about 75 cents depreciation. So that $734 you're paying, say 20 years from now, might seem very cheap, right? I remember when I first started renting in the 1980s, we were paying $350 for a one-bedroom apartment. And we thought that was a lot of money. I would think that's very cheap, right? If I could keep that $350 payment on a one-bedroom apartment, that would be great right now. So that's the thing, is if you buy something, it might seem like a bit, but over time you'll say, oh, that's really cheap. And by buying, you don't have a landlord that's going to raise your rent on you and stuff. But again, the cost is you're going to pay some interest. Now notice this was at 8%, which is pretty close to where interest rates are now. There's about a little over 7%. If the interest rate were lower, then you would pay less. The amount of interest charged would be less. So that's the effect of interest rates. Okay, and the homework you're going to be doing in lesson 6 will have you do these kind of calculations where you have to find the monthly payment, and so you're going to enter in things like how much did you borrow, how many years did you borrow it for, what was the interest rate, and how long are you going to have it, right? Then you're going to calculate that monthly payment. They're going to ask you how much interest. Well, you're going to take that monthly payment times the number of months you're going to pay it back. 30 years is going to be 360. You'll get your total of payments, subtract the loan, and then you'll have your interest. Okay, so you'll make this calculation several times during the homework, and you'll just get a feel for, and you'll see the higher the interest rate, the higher the amount paid back is going to be. The longer the loan term, the lower the monthly payment, but the higher the amount paid back, the total payment will be. So you'll be able to play with those. And again, the reason I want you using like these apps is because if you download them to your phone or your tablet, you'll have that with you. If you go in to buy a car, you'll be able to pull up the numbers and check the people out, because they're going to say, yeah, how much do you want to pay? Oh, I want to pay $250. Well, they'll get you to so you can pay $250, but you want to check how are they doing it? What part of the loan are they changing? Are they getting, charging a lot more interest because they can do that? So that's the last slide. And